All right, welcome everybody today to the Freight Advisors podcast. I want to welcome Shawnah Kucken, who is recruiting director for Pinnacle Growth Advisors. Shawnah, welcome. You are a guest advisor today.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to talk to you. We're recording this, and you and I were talking beforehand. One of the reasons why I was so drawn to you and your experience was just kind of the outlook and your presence and the way you communicate, not only finding, joy and purpose and fulfillment in, a professional life, but also in your personal life. And so when it comes to, that work-life balance and enjoying kind of the ride of it all, I think you offer a really good perspective for our audience to really take hold of. And hopefully they'll gain a lot from our discussion today, because I think it's going to be super important.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really excited, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shawnah, you want to give maybe a quick background of who you are? How'd you get into this crazy space of transportation and logistics? I'm interested to know more about it.
Yeah, so it's quite funny actually. I went to school for nursing. I'm from Wisconsin originally, so I've been in Arizona for about 10 years now. And when I moved out here, I realized that the education system is completely different. And so I had to go back to school to basically redo all of the education I'd already done to be a nurse. And so while I was doing that, I ended up getting a job at Global Trans. And I started off in back office. I kind of fell in love with the industry. It was super fast paced. I was, one of probably the first 50 employees at Global Trans. And so I just got to see tremendous growth, and I just kind of fell in love with the fast paced atmosphere and just really just everything about the industry. And so while I was there about 8 years, I kind of shifted focus from being in back office to then going into the front office, which for them is to recruit for freight agents. And so I did that, and I did some marketing as well. And then, once I got to that point, I was kind of like, what else is next for me? I want to really do something that I can make a huge impact in this industry. And so I actually reached out to Brent Orsuga with Pinnacle Growth Advisors, and just kind of wanted to pick his brain, to figure things out and what's out there, what could I do? And eventually we just kind of decided to partner up together, and now I help him and Pinnacle and a couple other people recruit in the industry. And so we help place people all throughout logistics, really three major areas being the asset side, the traditional truckload brokerage, as well as the third-party logistics, and those tech companies kind of fall into that category too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you learn from a really good company, Global Trans, getting your feet wet with such a powerful group, and then moving again to another industry vet with Brett and what they do over there. So you're in a good spot to really not only have learned the industry, but then take what you've learned to help others, find their path within again, the transportation and logistics space.
Yeah.
One of the things, as I was kind of looking through background and what you and I talked about, is transportation and logistics specifically, but also in general, just kind of any kind of profession. There's this this kind of ongoing battle between personal and professional work-life balance. And as I was kind of introing what we're going to talk about, you have a really good perspective. I think that's super helpful for those who are trying to understand not only their own place, but how, especially those who are up and coming, how to really set boundaries, how to really kind of look at their future, and how to put in perspective to where they're at now to where they want to be, but not get so overwhelmed with kind of the journey. How did you get there? I mean, again, you have this perspective that's really awesome. How did you get to this perspective? How did that come about, and why?
So really, it kind of just stems from my history growing up. I come from not really the most lavish lifestyle, from a very, very small town in Wisconsin. Didn't have very much, but I always kind of just had this burning desire of just wanting to do more. And I mean, I just kind of went through a lot of things in life that, were very scary and very challenging. And just through overcoming those struggles at such a young age. And I helped raise my sisters when I was 12 years old. My dad had twins. And just really stepping into more of an adult role at such a young age definitely catapulted me, to start to gain that perspective on life. And then, just throughout the years, just learning, what my limits are and what my boundaries are, and just in general, what my goals are. And then you kind of just start to pick away the pieces of, okay, this is now what I need to do to accomplish those goals. And then you just kind of learn to fall in love with that journey, and just, every piece of, my past has played some role into where I'm at now. And how could I not be, happy about that? Because I'm definitely excited about where I'm at and where I'm going. So.
Right. No, that's really good perspective. And it's so good, especially right now in a time where, we're still in kind of the midst of a pandemic, and, there's so much upheaval and turmoil, just in, the world in general. But really even in the transportation and logistics space, there's so many people losing their jobs, trying to find new employment, taking, what they can get to, to be meaningfully employed. And, having a message like yours and an attitude like yours, I think is super helpful in times where things are turbulent and when there's a lot of adversity. How have you seen people who you talk to, clients of yours, both individually, but also as corporations, how have you seen, I guess, in general, what's been the attitude like? Do you see is there a lot of depression? Is there a lot of, angst about what's going on? Or have you seen people generally, with good attitudes?
I think there's definitely been a mix. I think it kind of comes and goes in waves, just because, I'm sure, as and you've experienced, like, this is just a really weird time right now. Like, I was just
Right.
asking my dad this last night, like, in your 50 plus years of life, have you ever experienced something like this? And he's like, no, like, not to this degree. And so, just being out there and talking to so many people and our clients, there's definitely days where I have people who are very frustrated and very upset and don't know what their next step is and are weary of the future. And we talk through that. But then there's also other days, where just people are radiating this positive energy, where I think, something within them, they're just like, you know what? I got this, like, I can do this. And like the future, there's some things that are popping up now where it looks a little bit brighter, and, the economy is kind of picking up in some areas. And, I just think that it just really comes in waves and just kind of depends on the day, but I'm kind of seeing both.
Yeah, that's good. And what do you guys do right now to help people place great professionals within their company?
So this is one of the things that really drew me to Pinnacle and to Brent. We are a little bit different. So we don't really consider ourselves recruiters or, like a placement firm. I like to call myself, and what we like to kind of call ourselves, is a matchmaker. And so we like to build strategic relationships with both the clients as well as the candidate. And we like to ask very deep questions and have the conversations that other people aren't having, to really learn what these people want and what they're needing, for their lives and to be fulfilled. And then we're really able to match, that person with the company based off of that. And another really awesome factor is that Brent, over the years, has actually gone to all of his clients' locations, and he's been there. He knows the people. He's probably sat in the same conference room that, that potential candidate would be sitting in at some point. So it's just a different ball game, I feel like, with being a part of this team. So it's really exciting.
Well, it seems like you guys really have the messaging, nailed down when it comes to, how to not only interact with the client, the person, the job seeker, but again, like you said, the company also wanting to hire good talent. And I do think that's important. We see that a lot right now in the truck, the driver recruiting space, where, trying to match up much more, not relationship based, but but really trying to line up the characteristics of that person and what's important to them, and then place them in a driving job that really fits, not maybe that their lifestyle, but their future, wants and needs, instead of just making it, just a pipeline, kind of a call to go through and say, hey, yeah, this person's, for lack of a better word, breathing. Let's put them in this, in this seat and go. But I think that's so important to be able to, again, match up preferences, and to, from people to companies so that the match makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not going to make sense for even one of the people involved, I mean, what's the point? I mean, then it's just there's no future to it anyways, and then you're going to be back in that same position as you were in the first place. So, just don't throw a noodle at a wall to see if it sticks. Actually learn about the people you're working with. And another important thing to remember, and which I have to tell myself often, is that I'm not going to be able to help everyone. I mean, I am going to definitely try. And if I can't do it today, that's not to say I won't be able to do it another day, but just remembering that inside while I have these conversations, but then also being transparent about that while you're talking to people, letting them know, I may have went into this call with one thing in my mind, but now after talking to you and learning about you, what I had in mind might not be the best fit. Let me take a step back and kind of really think about where we could go with this. And it might not be today, it might be next week, might be next month. Things change, especially in this industry, so rapidly that, at some point there could be something that makes sense, but that's something important to also remember.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. What do you think, your experience, I mean, what do companies do right and what do they do wrong when it comes to recruiting? You and Brent put out a video recently, I think, touching on some of these points, but
Yes.
I mean, and I think as a person who's hired lots and lots of people, I know, that I've done it the incorrect way. I hope that I've also done it the right way. But what in your experience, how do people get right versus what they get wrong?
I don't necessarily think that there's a right or a wrong way. I think it does definitely depend on, your company and what your goals are. But just a couple things that really kind of get me going is just have some sort of a process in place. Like whatever that process is for you as a company, that's fine, whatever works for you, but have something clearly defined. So that way you're not just, blind leading the blind. Like you need to know what each next step is and just the pace, especially in an environment right now where there are so many people who are unemployed and looking for new roles. You need to keep up. These people don't think that they're not out talking to other companies. Like they're going on dates, like you need to go with the flow and get things going. So those are my two biggest pain points.
Well, and and that's so true. And the one that you guys hit on that I thought what you had said in that video was, you have the professional, right? The person wanting to be hired, right? He's going 100 miles per hour. The recruiter, you in that seat, you're going 100 miles per hour. It's, the company themselves are kind of lollygagging around. They don't quite know what exactly to do. They may have had a process and they may have, gone outside of that process, whatever may have happened. But it's so frustrating I'm sure for folks in your seat, but also for those who are looking for positions. I mean, you want some information. It's something is better than, just the silence that echoes in your mind when you're trying to search for some, foothold in this job search that you're doing.
Yeah, that's another important piece is communication, just having that open line of communication. And I am so thankful that we have the relationships that we do have with our clients, just because a lot of them are just a text message away, which having that kind of access to decision makers at companies that are hundreds of millions of dollars is pretty rare. And it's a great thing that we're able to have that in most cases. But, there are definitely still some times where, especially with, the circumstances of life right now, where, where people were caught off guard and they've had to make some changes in their processes. And so it might not be going as smoothly as it once had or, whatever else, but just keeping that line of communication open and just saying, if there is an issue or there is a holdup, just let us know. Because that's all the candidate wants to know is that if things are still okay, and that things are still moving along. So that's very important too.
Super important. What do you think? Sometimes when you're sitting in the seat, when you're looking, for a position, you don't hear anything. Is there anything that candidates should be doing? What they can be doing? Maybe not to help in one particular. Hey, I have this job in mind. I don't want to compartmentalize it too much and say, hey, just this one job. But what should they be doing as they are searching for employment?
So there's a couple of things. So knowing where you excel, and that's in all areas, not necessarily just, I excel in sales or in operations, but also just your own personal qualities. Are you a go-getter? What is your work ethic like? Know what your accomplishments are and have all of that laid out in just some quick bullet points. So then when you are asked those questions, you have those readily available and you know how to sell yourself, if you will. Another thing is just to make yourself visible, and you can do this a number of ways. I think technology has made it a lot easier, but being on platforms like LinkedIn definitely will help. Just networking with other people, maybe join a group and, talk to other people that you used to work with, find out what's going on in the market, talk to recruiters. I mean, even if there's a recruiter that can't help you, we still might be able to help you, introduce you to another person that might be able to help you or help you update your LinkedIn page. I have conversations all the time with people that I'm not even helping that just reach out and say, how can I negotiate my salary? Like, I don't even know where to start. And then I'll help them as best as I can, or what I know has worked for me in the past. Just simple things like that, just be out there, go and talk to people and make yourself visible.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I'm surprised when I see candidates come across, my desk, people in, management positions, sales positions, more senior level, mid-level to senior level positions, and they don't have, professional network established. They haven't gone through that process to do that. And that's not a deal breaker. You find really good people who, again, who are in all sorts of, at variable stages in kind of creating their network. But I always try to, when I talk to people and say, hey, I notice that you don't have a professional, presence. And I think that's so important. I think even if it's, a lot of times it shows that you're engaged with your industry, that you're engaged with what's going on. You don't have to, put your opinions or post a lot of things. But I think it says a lot about your progression and how you view yourself as an entity, how you view yourself as a brand. And companies, you talk about, I think, selling yourself and creating value. Oftentimes, your personal brand, your personal value is what companies see before they even engage with you, talking with you. And so to leave out something so critical and so vital, I think is a big mistake for a lot of candidates.
Yeah, I completely agree. And technology is not going anywhere. So you may as well, jump on board and use it to the best of your ability so you can create that value for yourself. And so you can learn how to set yourself apart from everyone else that's out there in the world.
Yeah. And I think, and you're a good example of this. There's tons of people out there that are great examples of sharing, having some vulnerability in what they share and what they post. Again, you don't have to be, it's good to have some consistency, but a lot of times I think it's about just showing interest. And if you can show interest again in your profile and in what you're engaging with and what you're, discussing and maybe some views on what's going on, again, I think it's a huge opportunity to, again, create your own personal brand that companies will see and say, yeah, I think this makes sense. This guy obviously is in tune with what's going on. Or, hey, we have similarities in certain things. I just think it's a big opportunity.
Yeah, I think that it is important to, put out those professional, more polished videos and pieces of content. But, at the end of the day, we're all human and we're all in this together. And every person, especially now, more than ever now, we crave human connection, right? And just being able to know that this other person that you've seen or that you may have talked to here and there is going through something similar, has the same viewpoints, it helps you connect at a completely different level, and having that personal connection, that can go such a long way. Not only will you feel just more fulfilled inside, which is just always the best thing, you might make a new friend, you might be able to provide value in someone's life in a different aspect than you ever thought you could. But then also it could still potentially lead to a lead or, a professional relationship even sometime down the road. So it's definitely important to keep, both of those lines of communication open from a professional and a personal standpoint with branding.
Yeah, that's good. And I think this kind of links into something else. is about, how to set your own worth, right? There's a lot of discussion about this is, hey, what are you worth, quote unquote worth, right? But again, I think what you're talking about is helpful in two ways. One, as you become more engaged, you create a sense of, hey, you're building your own worth, right? As you start to progress and as you start to build your own brand and engage with the people you want to. But it also, on the other hand, it shows, again, as you become more engaged, your currency goes up, right? Because people start to see you in a different way. And I think that's important for a lot of people to understand as they're, again, engaging in ways, whether it being, creating content, posting something or commenting on something. There's a lot of opportunities to create content, to give opinions, even on a non-paid, small paid or non-paid basis that creates value that you can use as a method to show others, especially those around you, especially those who might be recruiting you or want to engage with you, that that's important to who you are. But again, it starts to set at least at a level of what you're worth in the position that you're trying to look for.
Yeah, I think it's important. That's why it's important to have these conversations with people and to engage with people so much, because then you can really learn where you can provide the most value. And then that just kind of helps with all of the future content. And so, you're only as good as your audience and the people that you surround yourself with, is what I like to say. And so I constantly am looking for ways to meet new people that I can learn from, but that can also learn from me. And so, just keeping that communication open and engaging with people and learning about people is just so, so important.
Yeah. So tell me more about this. From an expert like you, when you talk about creating those social connections, we know, obviously there's personal as well as professional value to that, but why is that? Why do you think that is? Why is it so important to create kind of these social connections in life?
I mean, it's just like something that's ingrained in us as humans. We want to have human connection and love. I mean, think about it from when you're first born. You are nurtured, most of the time nurtured from your parents, and you're feeling that love and constantly looking for that affection and that connection with those around you. And that's how you're learning. And so that carries over into all of the rest of your life. And that's why people still want to have that so bad. And it's important. I mean, think about how you feel when you feel alone, or when you feel like you don't have somebody that you can turn to, or you're just having a bad day and you want to talk to someone, maybe there's no one available. Like that really doesn't sit well with you, So I think it's just at a deeper level, from something that we've just been brought up as people to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's right. So I'm getting an echo here. I think that's right. One of the things that was interesting in kind of my progression here, because oftentimes you think about, well, I want to separate my personal life from professional life. I'm not sure that's always a good philosophy. I understand why people say that. We can talk more about that. But one of the things that came about through my connections in LinkedIn was this group. It happened to be a Bible study group, right? But it's full of people that I didn't know until I engaged with someone on LinkedIn. That engagement then led and opened a door to other things, and it was something that led from then a personal or professional connection to something more personal. And I think it's really opened my eyes a little bit about the power, again, of those social connections that we can create that help us improve as a person, that have implications in our personal life as well as professional life.
Yeah, this is something that I've gone back and forth on a lot over the years. I was always raised actually to keep your professional life, and your personal life, your personal life. But I've definitely changed, my own view on that over these years. And I think just you're with the people that you work with more than most other people that you have in your life. I mean, I remember my days starting out in this industry working at Global Trans, And I worked so many hours and was like, just always there. And if I wouldn't have built those personal relationships, I don't know if I would have had as much fun, and have been able to excel the way that I did. And now building those relationships and allowing myself to just really be me and build those personal connections, I definitely would not be where I'm at right now and have the relationships that I have and be able to help as many people as I can right now if I didn't intertwine those two.
Yeah. This is definitely something that I've evolved with as I've gotten older and had more connections and more relationships with people, is that, you could spend all your time just being distant and not engaging on a personal level with people that you work with. But I tell you what, man, it's and you know this, and everybody listening probably knows this as well too. That when you invest in people, you get a lot in return. And to act like the 8 to 10 hours a day that we spend at work, sometimes more, 50, 60 hours, those relationships don't matter, and that they don't have an impact on our, our physical, mental health, professional, personal, lives, is a huge mistake. And it's a missed opportunity to create really, I think, deep and really good connections.
Yeah, and I think could be even maybe some confusion as to, what that means, intertwining the personal and professional relationship. That doesn't mean you need to share every single aspect of your life with everyone and, blast that out there. Of course, there's always going to be things that you still keep to yourself, like not everyone needs to know everything. But yeah, just,
there's always those overshares, right?
There's definitely times that you can overshare and you don't need to, have any HR violations or anything like that. But yeah, it's just good to be able to relate to other people. And, that's how you're going to build the strongest bonds with people. So.
Yeah. I think that's good. That's really good advice. And I think actually, as leaders listen to this, I think there's there are professional lines that obviously have to be drawn. Sometimes people don't always know what those lines are. And sometimes, it's become comfortable with people. You start maybe to cross lines or you don't know always where those lines are. So I do think that some companies need to do a better job in training to that, right? Hey, we want you to be part of our group. We want you to be part of this discussion and enjoy the hours that you're here a day. There's obviously boundaries, but otherwise, we want you to, treat this place as a place you want to come and to participate and be a part of.
And this is actually a really good point, and I'm glad you brought that up specifically with like the client and candidate side, because Brent and I laugh about this all the time, where we have candidates who will go on interviews sometimes and they let their guard down. They're maybe on like their second interview or third interview, especially now with having to not be able to meet in person as much, but they start to let their guard down and they get really comfortable, and then they let things out that they probably shouldn't let out while they're still being considered for a job. And so, yes, it is very important to still keep that in the back of your mind. You still are a professional, and you still, need to be looked at as a person that they can rely on and depend on, and, that they want to have a part of their professional team. And same goes for the companies, though. Like, they need to definitely establish those boundaries. Like, if you're going to be taking people out on happy hours and getting a little crazy, then you can't really expect your employees to have, a different view on how they should be behaving around you, because you're kind of opening it up for them to be a little more casual. So there's a fine line, and you just need to create what those boundaries are and put that out there so everyone is on the same page.
Yeah. So take note, leaders who are listening to this, right? It's again, all that stuff is great. I really enjoy places that are like that, but set the boundaries and live them, right? Because again, you go to some of these functions, it gets a little crazy, and then you have some double speak that's not helpful.
Industry.
Yeah, especially here. Yeah. So that brings me another question that comes to mind, especially now if you're employed somewhere, right? And there's so much to this idea that, hey, I want to be engaged, I want to be a great worker, but I also need space, right? I want to be part of this work community that I'm in, but I also need my personal space. there's a lot of discussion about work-life balance. What's your perspective on, creating that balance, but really, learning to say no to things and setting expectations with the people who you work with and for?
Yeah, this is definitely my biggest struggle personally, is saying no. And this has been through all areas of my life. Have always been a yes person, and I always end up taking on way too many things. I mean, I always still get through it, but it just causes so much stress and anxiety, and it's just not worth it to put yourself into that position. So, still with even yourself, like knowing what your limits and your boundaries are and exercising them, and really sitting down and taking the time to think about what those are and writing them down if you have to. So it's top of your mind and repeating that to yourself. And also just knowing what your goals are professionally and personally, doing the same thing with those. And then unfortunately, with me, I still had to learn the hard way a few times. I'm sure, there's a lot of other people out there that have to do the same, but those are really the two biggest things that I found to help me, is just knowing what my boundaries and my goals are, and then writing them down, repeating them to myself, and then finding out exactly what I need to do to accomplish those goals. So that's really my biggest takeaway for that.
So I wrote that down as you were saying that, because you mentioned it twice, which I think is important. One is when you're actively looking for new positions, you want to be able to articulate your value to an organization. And in order to prepare for that, it's important to write those things down. Hey, I'm good here, here, and here. Perhaps I need work, which is why I'm coming to you as an organization. I think you can help me. I'm going to create this value, but I'm really looking to you to help me do, to learn these things. But as you're talking to, that also should then travel with you as you start to work and be in positions. You need to know your limits. Hey, I'm offering the organization these things, but I also need to have limits, and I need to be able to say no for, these reasons. And that's because these are my goals, and this is what I want to do. And this, what I'm doing here, doesn't align with that. And I think oftentimes we don't, we're afraid to do those things. But I think if we do it the way you're kind of, what you alluded to and are talking about, if we do it in a very consistent, articulated way, then I think most employers will understand that and they'll get on board with it.
Yeah, you said a very important word, consistent. So consistency is key, really, if you want success in anything. So you just need to constantly repeat these things to you. I know there's all this buzz about, having a vision board or writing down your goals each day, but that stuff didn't just come from thin air. These are a lot of people, very high level professionals that I follow, preach that kind of stuff, because that's just the reality. There's not any other secret sauce to success other than knowing what your limits are, knowing what your goals are, and then having the discipline and hard work and consistency to follow that through.
Yeah. That's, man, if people could take that one lesson, right, and activate it within their minds and do it all the time, consistency, habitual work, creating those habits that make you successful in all aspects of your life, that'd be, obviously a huge win for everybody, myself included. I mean, it's so hard sometimes. And so say, and I've been at this stage in my life oftentimes too, where I do this, either really well or not so well. But when you're not doing it well, right? When you're having consistency issues and not doing the things that you wrote down or that are on your vision board, whatever it may be, how do you get out of that? How do you set yourself up to then be successful, again, I guess, or going forward?
So it's really important to take time to really learn what's most important to you. And sometimes you just need to take a step back and reflect on that and reevaluate. Are these still the things that are most important to me and of value to me and my goals? Or do I need to shift now and do this? And then you just have to say, okay, so then now this is what I have, discovered, but then this is now what I need to do again to get, to reach these goals or to get to this point. And so whatever that may be. I mean, for me, it's definitely any type of exercise is like my outlet for sure, which is for sure been hard with not having gyms. But I mean, you find a way. Being outside is definitely something, maybe listening to a motivational podcast and then kind of just taking some time, to think about things, whatever that looks like for you, but take that time for yourself, whether it's 5 minutes a day or 30 minutes once a week, something to just kind of reevaluate, especially when you're going through that time of inconsistency.
Right. And do you have any anything that you've used or any kind of systems or anything that you've used that have helped you do that? Or is that just something that you make up out of your mind and kind of do it?
So one of the most amazing things that I've ever found, which has really just changed my life, is there's this program. It's a completely free program. It's a mental toughness program, and it's called 75 Hard. This is from Andy Frisella. He's a business owner of multiple businesses, 7-figure businesses, 9-figure businesses, I think too. He's definitely a realist. He's not for everyone. He's very kind of in your face, but I mean, I love it. But his program is really for everyone. It teaches you discipline, and it has a lot of different things, that it touches on, as far as like there's drink a gallon of water a day, exercise twice a day for 45 minutes. One has to be outside no matter what. Pick a diet that is right for you and stick to it. There's a couple other things. I did it the beginning of this year, but reading 10 pages of a book that's self-development or some type of learning book. I think there's one more I'm missing, but it just helps teach you that consistency and keeping yourself accountable. And if you mess up, you start over and you do it for a full 75 days. And I cannot tell you how I felt when I completed that program. I did it through like the hardest time ever. I did it through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, because I knew if I could not drink and I could do all of these things and stick to all of this during holidays and all of that craziness, like I could get through anything. And that's really what it teaches you. It's not a fitness program or anything. Definitely helps keep you healthy, which is important, I feel like, to having success, being mentally and physically healthy. But just helps teach that discipline and helps teach that consistency, which will transfer in every area of your life. So that's my go-to. Like I need to start phase 1 pretty soon here. So
that's good. Well, maybe you need to do like a challenge or something that we can all get on and join you in that journey.
Yeah.
Some transportation logistics journey that challenge that you can start to get adherence to and start to do it with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely down for that. Maybe that could be the next best thing.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I read a book, and I'm blanking on the author. It's called Grit. A lot of people probably have heard of it. One of the fundamental aspects of the book, or kind of the philosophy of the book, is this idea that as a person, you got to be able to encourage within yourself this grittiness, this grit factor. And this acknowledgement that things are difficult, life is real, right? And no one's no one owes you anything, whether you're at work or at home, right? In order to be successful and to succeed, right, you gotta work for it. You gotta show grit and determination, especially when things are tough and when things are difficult. When you're trying, especially in those phases when you're trying to create the right habits. And the right daily activities to do what you want to do, right? What you've committed to do. And I think it's, again, the principles of the book are really good, but again, this idea that grit is one of the fundamental, kind of characteristics of humanity in order to be successful, I think is really good. And a little bit of what you're talking about, which is, again, when things are difficult, when you've created a standard for yourself that you've committed to do for yourself, you have to be prepared that at first it's going to be, great. You're going to have all the energy in the world to do it. But as time goes on, that grittiness is what's going to get you through and get you, to the end and have finally fulfilled that commitment that you made to yourself at the beginning.
Well, and you have to think about, how bad do you want something? Keep that in your mind. How bad do you want it? That's really what it comes down to. If you want it bad enough, you will obsess over it and you will make it happen. Just as simple as that.
Yeah. And I think, again, as a, as a leader in, different companies, and as a manager, and even as someone who is coming up and working, I found it valuable to make sure that those values, those ideas that you have, are communicated. Those are things that I think that are important. That we talk about sharing what's appropriate. Those things are important and critical, I think, to share with people you work with and for. Hey, this, me leaving at X, X out, 5 o'clock at night is important because why? Because I made a commitment to spend 45 minutes at the gym because it helps me here. It's going to help me at home, and it's going to make me more productive. But being able to communicate that effectively to people who, again, you work with and for, is vital to making that successful transition to be a good, critical, habit keeper.
Yeah, I think that, communication, right? Like, I tend to over communicate, which some people might not appreciate, but I just feel like there's really not any downside to doing that. Why wouldn't you want, to share everything that you have gone through and that you've been able to do to help yourself overcome something? You never know what could help another person or what they're going through in their life and how you could inspire them. And so I tend to overshare on pretty much all of that stuff, whether people want to hear it or not. But
yeah. Well, gosh, if we all had more kind of that emotional quotient in our lives, that ability to, have empathy and really put ourselves in the shoes of others, man, how better we would be as, people, as organizations, as, society, if we could just, understand that that's critical to be able to have that emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I think, that's something that I've just always been an extremely passionate person. And I really do kind of attribute that to my parents, because I have to say that even with everything that I'd ever gone through in my life, and I've been through some pretty intense things, I always had the one constant of both of my parents having that love and empathy and passion for me. And that is carried on through everything else that I do in life. And that's through work, through me personally, like every single thing I do, like what you see is what you get, and I'm all in.
That's awesome. So as we're getting close to time here, I want to give you an opportunity. What have we missed? What's important to Shawnah that we maybe missed, or you want to be able to communicate to those who are watching? What do you think is important? What do you want your people to know?
So I will touch on two things. One thing that's more specific to the industry and recruiting and, hiring and things of that nature. And then the second one is just more on the personal and success side. So I will start by just kind of saying, the way that things are trending right now, we've obviously been through so many changes in our industry. We went from, massive layoffs and all of these different changes from the pandemic and going remote, to now where things are kind of picking back up, at least from a freight standpoint, and people are wanting to hire, and they're not looking to add new hires. It's to replace, the people that they had let go, because they were able to determine in their minds who was of most value to their company and not, based off of how they adapted and how they performed while working remote and just other factors. And so now companies are looking for the most elite talent to join their team, but they're looking for plug and play. And so what I mean by that is there's not really room for creativity right now. They're looking for people, like if they want a salesperson, they want somebody who was already been doing that sales role. They're not going to be like, well, they were account manager, but they did a little sales, so we can move them into that. There's a time and a place for all of that creativity. And right now, it is just not that. If you're a manager and you want to be a C-level, probably not going to happen right now. You're probably going to be going into another manager role. It's just kind of how it is. So it's important just to recognize that right now, and that companies have the ability to be very picky, because there are a lot of other people that are out there and that are willing to take that same job. And so just remember that. On the personal, more success side, just kind of keep in mind all the things that we've talked about, and just remember it's okay to have bad days and to have off days and have all of these different feelings, but just remember what your purpose is and your why, and why you're doing everything that you're doing and how you can help other people, and just, put those things into action. There's two things that you can control in your life, and that's your attitude and your actions, and that's what you kind of need to stick with.
Yeah, That's awesome. That's very well said. I don't think I have anything to add to that because it was, I think it's an encapsulation of perfectly of, I think, what you've proven to be and what you instill and what you talk about a lot. And I really appreciate that and appreciate our conversation. And how do people engage with you? If people want to talk more to you, maybe on either a personal or professional level, or if they're looking for positions, whatever, maybe how should they get in contact with you?
I mean, I'm all over LinkedIn, so you can definitely reach me there. It's just my first and last name, my @ Shawnah Kucken. That's also my Instagram. Make it very easy if you want to connect with me on more of a personal side as well. Shoot me an email. It's just my first name @ pinnaclegrowthadvisors.com. I'm available. There are times where I'm not able to respond as quickly as I would like, but just know it's because I respond to every single message on my own. I don't have somebody else that helps me do that. I am a single mom. I have other things going on too. So it might take me maybe even up to a week to get back to some of you, but I will always respond and do my absolute best to help in any way that I can.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to post some of those things below in the show comments. Man, I really appreciated talking with you. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
All right, bye-bye.